The Montana Heritage Tour is a 6-part series featuring mostly small, rural museums. This project is a joint venture of the Montana Historical Society and Helena Civic Television. You can find cultural and historical treasures no matter which way you travel across the Big Sky State. The nice thing about starting in Helena is that when you drive out of town in any direction, you're going to find gold. In the late summer of 2012, we set a course north, keeping in mind the ancient Aboriginal highway along the eastern flank of the Rocky Mountain front. First stop, Choteau, and the Old Trail Museum. Julie Ameline is the manager there.
Well, there's a lot of things that is distinctive, but we have some very individual things that travelers love to see. We have a skeleton of a man that was killed many, many years ago. We have a great display of the Blackfeet Native Americans. We have A.B. Guthrie's display. We have the Métis history, which is very important in this area. And we can't forget the dinosaurs that were discovered right out of town here. We have a lot of really nice artifacts here. A.B. Guthrie is a Pulitzer Prize winner author, and he has some excellent novels, Big Sky, The Way West, and he lived right in this area for many, many years, and he's very well known as an author. We received a grant. We applied for this grant from OPI, Office of Public Instruction, and worked with the Historical Society to enable our children from Choteau Elementary to intermingle with the Blackfeet children in Browning. And we had several back and forth trips to where they learned our history, our way of living, and we learned theirs. And by doing this, the kids really, there's a strong push for Indian Ed for all in the school system now. And the kids got to really see how the Native Americans thought, lived, did activities. And in the process of that, the 8th grade children from Browning taught our children how to make teepee villages and teepees. And then they made a whole village, the Browning children, and we got that presented to us, the whole village, and every teepee has a story.
A grant extension enabled the museum to purchase a new full-size teepee situated on the exterior grounds. Julie and local youngsters learned how to paint the teepee from Blackfeet students. Another unique exterior feature at Old Trail is an authentic Métis cabin.
The Métis people, Métis means mixed blood, and that means that Native Americans married, usually Frenchmen, but it could have been others too. And the Métis were a group pretty much by themselves. And they kind of started in Canada and then into Minnesota. And from there they were kind of pushed out. And so they fled to the North Dakotas and into Montana. And in Montana and other places, they were rounded up and sent back to Canada. So they would try to hide. And a bunch of the Métis people hid up in the mountains above Choteau. And they stayed there for years in a group by themselves. They didn't venture out from the mountains because they were afraid of being deported. So we have displays from the flag of the Métis people. We have Red River carts that a local gentleman here in Choteau builds. We have a great big one out front of the Métis cabin. We have an actual Métis cabin. And inside the cabin is the way the Métis would have lived. And it's It's pretty neat. Two of our local people in town have donated all the interior stuff that's in that cabin. We have a sash, a Métis sash that's on display. And so it's a great display, and it's one of a kind.
Here's a brief aside. The saga of the mixed-blood Métis converges with the well-trod Old North Trail at a place called the Bird Tail near the Dearborn River. Louis Riel, visionary Métis leader, taught school at St. Peter's Mission, perhaps the oldest structure still in use in Montana. The Museum of the Plains Indian in Browning is an old-fashioned place with lots of exhibits behind glass. Located on the Blackfeet Reservation not far from Glacier National Park, this unique federal facility has a staff of 2 and support from dedicated volunteers. Ruth Ann Knudsen is an official friend of the museum. She came over from Great Falls to give us the scoop.
Our purpose is to promote Northern Plains art and culture, and especially the Museum of the Plains Indian. The museum was built in 1941 by the Bureau of Indian Affairs as part of its education program. And the collections are probably late 19th century, early 20th century for the most part. And they're collections from over 25 tribes. It's a very wide-ranging collection. It's a federal collection. The building is federal. That means that the museum has to meet all the federal standards for curation and protection of the artifacts. It's really a unique collection. And the collections were very carefully acquired by the first curator, John Ewers, in the late 30s to early 40s, so that there was clear title to all of them. Again, it's a federal museum, federal responsibility. There are few items that are subject to the Native American Graves Repatriation Act, Protection of Repatriation Act, I misspoke, and those are in the process of being repatriated. There's only a few of those.
There are a variety of Plains Indian tribes materials on display at this museum.
Well, the Nez Perce are one, and the Nez Perce are thought of now as an Idaho tribe, but they used to come and hunt all along the northern plains. There are materials that are Amskapi Pekuni, which is Blackfeet. There are materials that are Apsalica, which is Crow. They're from a variety of reservations. Part of it is because James Hill from the railroad had collected materials, or knew people, and he donated a lot of materials or the funds to buy materials. So a lot of it relates to the railroad track across the High Line. A lot of Canadians come down here. There's an international audience. The Japanese like to come to the West. The Germans like to come to the West. I think David has about 15,000 visitors a year that he does have to turn in records of counts. In 1930, there was a Plains Indian Sign Language conference here in Browning. It obviously was not at the museum because the museum wasn't built yet. But it was a conference that was actually congressionally authorized. There were, I'm not sure, 15 or 18 signers. And during the conference, they made plaster molds of their moccasined feet, as well as the booted feet of the superintendent and General Scott. And those were cast in bronze, and they're on a memorial that sits in front of the museum building. It was a very important event, because most of these signers were in their 80s. There are plenty of signers today. There's still, in fact, sign language is taught in a number of tribal colleges. But that memorial is a very important part of now the museum story here. It's a connection that I feel to the people who made the items that are here, or to Victor Pepion, who drew the murals, or to Jack Ewers, John Ewers, who was the first curator and was a friend. It's the human connection with all the people from all the tribes whose story we still are able to tell.
Herb Gillum is responsible for maintaining the museum. It's a lot of work, but he likes talking with people, and he's got family connections that run deep. Herb is descended from a distinguished leader named Big Brave.
He was a real well-known warrior, and I think he was born. He lived to be about 90 years old, so that put him back in the 50s, 1850s and stuff like that, when they were still stealing horses and making war and stuff. And he had married about 5 or 6 times, so he has a lot of descendants that are on the Blackfeet Reservation. His real name was Big Brave, but he always went by Mountain Chief. The mural was done by Victor Peppian, who was also a relative, a descendant of Mountain Chief. What he did is the first scene is a scene of some warriors or hunters looking for buffalo. You know, that's what they did, is they hunted. In the background, you'll see he painted some mountains, and that represents the west. As you came into Browning, you seen the mountains in the west. That's the Continental Divide right up there. And the next scene shows men killing the buffalo. In the background, you'll notice there is a mountain that we call Chief Mountain, which was pretty sacred to the Blackfeet. And they always use it as a landmark, you know, and it had a lot of things to do with their religion and stuff. And that's depicted as north. And then on the east wall, it shows the women, you know, actually dressing out the buffalo that the men had killed, butchering it, and then packing it. You know, many people miss it, but the artist himself, you know, I think he did a really great job of kind of showing the area that we live in, you know, and what it meant to us.
He also told us about the .50 caliber repeating rifle that the Cheyenne called Yellow Boy, often seen in old Western movies. Herb enjoys offering correctives to common misperceptions about how the Plains Indians actually live.
I think that trying to educate people from the Hollywood movies into this type of what we have here, and show them the difference in how we really, you know, how we really lived. We didn't always run around with a big war bonnet on and shooting up the people by the, you know, thousands of us, you know. The Blackfeet very seldom, very seldom had a huge war party. They just went out in 5 or 6, and sometimes just a single person went out, and he'd raid horses or do something, you know, and every once in a while there'd be a big battle, but, you know, it wasn't. And that's what I kind of enjoy telling people, that the difference between what Hollywood has portrayed us as and what the reality of it was.
We were fortunate to encounter a real-life artist at work inside the museum, courtesy of the Indian Arts and Crafts Board in Washington, D.C.
I'm a Native American Blackfeet. I'm an artist. I came from a tree of different artists in my life. My grandpa was a good artist, and a lot of my aunties or relatives were the same way. And being a Native American artist, it's kind of hard to be recognized out there in the world, and to be here in the museum here, Plains Indian Museum, gives me a chance to demonstrate some of my artwork and some of my talent. And a lot of my work is based on Native American history, which makes it good for me and everybody else. I have a lot of people come here from all over the world wondering, you know, what's with the colors on the artwork? I told them, well, you gotta stay here one night and sit out there when the sun goes down. And everything just changes from different turquoise, reds, and blues. And that's what's the most a godly thing, you know. It's a free show out there. and nobody sees that. Because a lot of people we came from big cities where you can't see the sky, pollution, blah, blah, blah. But in the art world, we can capture that. And with my paint and my talent, that's what I capture. The story of my art is based on my culture, and a lot of my family were into the pipe bundles and ceremonies, and the colors that represent the aura of your spirit. That's where the colors come out of. And plus the history. All my work is based on like the shadows and the spiritual within the shadows, which is kind of real strange. But if an artist sees it and someone that's into spiritual reality can see it, they'll know what it's all about.
We strayed from the Old North Trail by heading to Fort Benton on the Upper Missouri, a place of commerce and connectivity between Euro-American settlers-to-be and the Blackfeet Confederation. Fort Benton has a complex of different museums. Fortunately for us, it also has some amazing people to administer the facilities and interpret many stories. Bob Dork set the stage.
We have 7 attractions in Fort Benton. We sell a 2-day ticket because there's so much to see. We have the Museum of the Great Northern Plains depicting the 3 eras of agriculture on the High Plains. We have a fully appointed homestead village, circa 1920. We have the Hornaday Buffalo. We have the old trading post covering the fur trade from the American standpoint. Our customers were the Blackfoot Confederation. We have an art gallery with 2 significant historic art collections. And we have the Upper Missouri Breaks National Monument Interpretive Center. And finally, we have a museum depicting a portion of the rich history of Fort Benton.
At the old fort facility, we met up with an extraordinary interpretive guide who goes by the name of Burnt Spoon. He led us right into history, explaining the purpose and functions of a 19th century trading post.
Welcome to Old Fort Benton. Is this your first visit to our trading post? Well, then let me introduce you. First of all, to myself, Burnt Spoon, Mountain Man. I'm your tour guide and your interpreter today at Old Fort Benton. But beyond introductions, let's just jump right into what is Old Fort Benton? Many of my visitors are confused because they think Old Fort Benton is a military fort. Well, okay, we're not there yet. The military does buy this trading post eventually from the last fur company that owns and operates its business here. In the beginning, Old Fort Benton is established on the Upper Missouri as the last of the great large fur company trading posts ever built on the Upper Missouri River for trade with the Niitsitapi. This is in English the Blackfeet or the Blackfoot Confederacy, a very large, powerful, sovereign nation of natives who have occupied this region where our trading post is, surrounding it, for some believe 6,000 years. Ooh, when do we get here? Well, our company, Pierre Choteau Jr. and Company from St. Louis, Missouri, is moving ever upward on the Missouri River, trading with different native tribes until by 1846, they've reached this spot, which is really only 20, 30 miles downriver from the Great Falls on the Missouri River. So essentially, boat traffic is stopped at the Great Falls anyway. This site was picked because a company that was trading with the Blackfeet prior to us building this trading post, well, we bought them out. What makes you more money? Shooting at and killing customers or befriending them, intermarrying with them, and not pushing issues like who owns the land. It's like, who cares? Bring us robes, bring us fur, bring us horses, bring us dried meat, bring us buffalo tongue. That's good to eat. And we'll give you trade goods. What's another word for trade goods? Let's call it technology. Anybody out there interested in technology? Oh, get real. Come on, it rules our lives today. But if you think that the Blackfeet don't have the same chromosome, think again. Because this technology behind me, including things like, oh yeah, you guessed it, guns. Guns like this old Northwest trade gun. Why is it called a trade gun? It's because fur companies were bringing these single-shot, muzzle-loading trade guns up the river, and had been since the 18th century. I mean, this is not a new weapon. It's flintlock, and the natives like them. They're easy to load, they're shotguns, so they're smooth bores, and the company sells powder and precast round balls that you can load in them. I mean, this is a made-in-the-shade weapon for use by the Blackfeet and other Plains Indian tribes. We bring lots of guns. But the Blackfeet don't shoot us with them. Come on, why kill the goose that lays the golden egg? Yeah, okay, now you're starting to get it. The company develops a relationship with its customers that transcends violence because nobody makes money and nobody gets cool technology if you kill the goose. This building that I'm standing in represents the oldest continuously occupied standing building in Montana, and therefore is the root for what Fort Benton calls itself today, the birthplace of Montana. So, the blockhouse of Old Fort Benton, what's its purpose? It was, like blockhouses on military forts, designed to defend the trading post in the event of an attack. I know. Your next question, were we ever attacked? The good news is no. We were never attacked during the entire period from 1846 until it was sold to the U.S. military in 1868. Why? Well, we were prepared. So what are we trying to say with a trading post, which is a civilian commercial company, building a trading post that looks like a military fort? What we're trying to say with that architecture is, if you attack us, you will lose. We have cannons, just like this replica that we have here on the floor of the old 3-pounder smoothbore naval guns, one of which was kept in each blockhouse. You can see behind me here the cannon ports, which would be opened and the muzzle shoved outward to fire at an attacker. Did we ever shoot at any attackers? Heavens no, because nobody ever attacked us. And oh, by the way, killing customers is not good for profits.
To a young person, or to anyone steeped in the romantic melodramas of the Old West, discovering that Old Fort Benton wasn't really a fort, but rather a trading post, might be a little disappointing. But Burnt Spoon puts a thoughtful spin on the subject.
Old Fort Benton, what a story. What a romance. What an American story. But what do stories have to do with your life today? I mean, we memorialized the past at Old Fort Benton. Why? What is the purpose of history? What is the purpose of a museum? The answer is that you, our visitor, you come to the fort seeking something. What are you looking for? You're looking for answers. You're looking for definition. You're looking for your own root in your own story. How do you do that? Old Fort Benton represents a period of time. Things happened in the 1840s and 50s, but legacies were left. Yeah? So what's that got to do with your life? Well, I'll tell you what, the reality you're living today is a legacy of actions that were taken by people in history. Come and visit Old Fort Benton. Sink yourselves into these stories, your stories. Find out where the mythology of your culture really started. That's right, my friends. For Americans, it's the frontier. And right here at Old Fort Benton, you will find plenty of the old frontier.
And yes, indeed, we did. We're finishing out this first episode with Bob Dirk and just a small portion of the story of how the Hornaday Buffalo found their way to this visually stunning display at Fort Benton.
These magnificent animals behind me are called the Hornaday grouping, if you will, and I will give you the background. about 1880, the bison, for all intents and purposes, were gone from these plains in Montana. From about 32 million bison around 1850, we were down to about 1,190 animals by 1889. But basically by 1880, these bison were gone, something had to eat the grass, so the cattle came in. By 1886, this was all cattle country, the ranges were overgrazed, and we were approaching that winter of 86, 87 that Charlie Russell depicted the famous sketch about. In the spring of 1886, the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. said they were short of bison specimens. So they sent an early taxidermist and naturalist, William Hornaday, out to eastern Montana to see what he could find.
Bob went on to describe the saga of the Hornaday exhibit. The Hornaday group of 6 bison includes a 1,700-pound bull, some cows, and a calf named Sandy, along with an authentic setting of Montana grass and dirt. It's amazing what volunteers hold in their heads, ready to deliver to inquiring visitors. The Hornaday restoration story is long, complicated, and fascinating. Bob Dirk knows every detail. Next time, the Montana Heritage Tour will take you to the High Line, further along the Dinosaur Trail. So long for now.
They are the farmers, the miners, the timber workers and millwrights, the small business owners and the captains of industry. They are the hands and the minds, the shoulders and the backs that made Montana. And we're proud to say that we see them in more than just museums. We see them in the people we continue to serve today. Montana State Fund, proud supporter of Montana's museums and the Montana Historical Society.